Yeah. We're getting calls about a wild party over here. Know anything about it? I didn't think so. Which one of you jokers goes by the name Mario?
It's me!
Could you step outside, please?
Welcome to Mario Party, where you and 3 friends battle it out all night long. With 6 adventure boards and 50 mini-games, this party's just getting going. Mario Party, only on Nintendo 64. But it's me, Mario!
Yeah, tell it to the judge.
Mario Party, Mario Party, Mario Party. What is there not to say about this iconic series? It's been going around for about 20 years now, and it's easily one of Mario's biggest spin-off series of all time period, right behind Mario Kart itself. And it's still going strong to this very day, especially with the games on Nintendo Switch. But when people try to say what is the best era for the Mario Party series, a lot of them go in line with the N64 titles, as these were the games that started it all, and it has some of the most iconic moments in the Mario Party series. And so I thought, why not just talk about the earlier titles with the game that started it all, Mario Party 1. Now, this game is mostly kind of a love or a hated title when it comes to the earlier games in the series. You either love it because of its BS, or you hate it because of its BS. Now, as for my personal history, this was the game that I didn't really grow up that much. I was more familiar with Mario Party 2 and especially 3. But I still try to play this game time for time, especially during the emulator phase I had. But it's actually been a very long time since I played this game. So I'm very curious on how well this game holds up after all these years. But with everything out of the way, let's get started. So when you start the game, you are greeted with a small little story, as Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, DK, and Wario try to discuss who is the real superstar, with each of the characters trying to show off their strength to see if they are worthy. Unfortunately, however, this discussion eventually leads to a big argument, with each of them budging in with one another. I mean, come on, what the heck are you doing with Luigi right there? And all this concludes with all of them piling up on Toad and launching him right in the air, and this is when he had enough, and he states that he will decide who is the superstar after the 6 can do some very special challenges. And thus, 20 years of people screwing each other over has begun. And so, when you start the game, you're greeted to Town Square, which is a place where you can do various things, but for now we're going to start with the traditional party mode, as this is the main meat and potatoes of this game. Now, content-wise, there's not going to be a lot of playable characters you can play as there's only 6, but with the boards, there are 8 different ones you can choose from, with 2 of them being unlockables. But after you choose a character on your board, we head straight into the gameplay. Now, with the Mario Party series, at this point, you're probably familiar with the gameplay itself, but just for this video, so I don't have to repeat myself for literally 10 different games, here's how it works. 4 players get to roll a 1 to 10 dice block, as you use it to move through different spaces, and every time you land on one, it does different things. Like the blue one, you get 3 coins. If you land on the red one, you'll lose coins. And the happening spaces causes a big event depending on which board you're in. Your main goal in each of the board is try to collect enough coins so you can get the star. The person with the most stars at the end will win the game. This is a very simple but very addicting gameplay loop that works very well with the Mario Party series over the years. But the end result for each of the games is a different story, because the best way to boil down Mario Party, especially the very first one, is skill and mostly luck. As depending on which board where the CPUs or different players are, or how lucky you are with rolling the dice, nothing is very predictable in these games. Because it really can take only one turn for you to go from first place to all the way down to last place. Literally most things in these boards are trying to steal your coins or stars. So not only you're trying to fight the CPUs, but also you're basically fighting luck itself. And the best way to do so is trying to strategize as much as you can, because sometimes this game does not pull any punches. Occasionally players will be able to find these special boos that are able to steal coins or stars, but nothing is very stressful for everyone once chance time comes into play. The best way to describe it is that it can literally turn the tables on anything at any moment. Like, someone's gonna get screwed no matter what. There is no in-between at all. This has got to be the most sadistic thing Nintendo has ever implemented in a game, and I freaking love it. Honestly, even though that Mario Party 1 is probably one of the more dated games in the series, I feel like the dated aspect honestly gives this game a bit of a unique flavor to it. Like, this game is probably the most cruel out of any other Mario Party game, and I freaking love it for it. Especially with the various boards in this game that even 20 years later, they still hold up pretty well. Now, I've got to say, I do like the fact that each of the boards in this game is themed after the different playable characters. DK's Jungle Adventure is the very first board you try out in this game, and it's probably the best for newcomers of Mario Party 1, as there's various different paths you can go through, and the Toad spawns for the most part feels very fair. But when we head straight into Peach's birthday cake, this is when the things get a bit more luck-based, as this is one of the few boards where the star is located in the same position, and your main goal is just to wrap around the board. And while you do so, you can plant these special prod plants out that can steal someone's star. And as for the luck aspect, well, there's this one section where you have to do this small little lottery with a Goomba where you have to choose from 4 different seeds. 3 of them, when you plant them, will spawn in a Toad icon, but 1 of them has a Bowser icon. The Toad icon, you go straight to the star, but with the Bowser icon, you go through a small little cake section with Bowser on it. Now, for every board, there's at least one area where Bowser appears in, and every time he interacts with you, he swindles you so many coins out, so it's best to avoid him as much as you can. Now, with Yoshi's Tropical Island, this is probably one of my favorite boards in this game, because I do love the idea of this board. As the whole mechanic of this one is that Toad and Bowser are on different sides of the island. And in order to travel from one side to another, you need to pay a toll with these thwomps. It's a very simple idea for a board, but the real challenge of this is every time someone lands on a happening space, Toad and Bowser will swap places. So the real challenge of this board is trying to get to Toad before he moves around once again, as I don't think I should remind you what happens when you interact with Bowser. Now, Wario's Battle Canyon is probably the most unique board in this game because of its main gimmick, which is, this board is divided into 4 different areas, where every time you interact with the bombs, they'll shoot you off into a different area. But where you land is mostly up to you and trying to understand this very fast reticle. And Luigi's engine room is pretty big. But with Mario's Rainbow Castle, this is another board I really like, as it has the mechanics similar to Yoshi's Tropical Island, where you need to make sure you get to Toad and not Bowser because someone can land on the happening space and flip the characters around. But unlike that board, Rainbow Castle is a very linear board. So if Bowser's on top of the castle, you need to try and install your turn by like going through a longer route or something. Bowser's Magma Mountain is a very weird one for me because I've heard horror stories about this board being the most cruel one in the game. But for some reason when I played through this one, I had zero bad luck with this board at all. In fact, it was mostly a cakewalk for some reason. I think it's mostly because with the luck-based mechanics of Mario Party, the luck was so into everyone's favor that we barely even interact with the various hazards in this board. I think the volcano erupted like twice during the playthrough, and that was basically it. And then finally, we end things off with the Eternal Star. Now this area is a bit similar to Wario's Battle Canyon, where it's divided into a few separate areas. But unlike that one where you travel through different parts within basically an RNG cannon, here you just use teleporters to go from side to side. But what makes this board the most unique one is how you collect the stars, because throughout the board there's these baby Bowser creatures where you need to roll the dice before you can actually get the star. And I know this would sound annoying, but they are very lenient with the dice because you can only roll up to 8 to 10. But overall, despite some minor gripes with certain areas of the boards, I think overall Mario Party 1 has a very strong selection of fun boards to go through, with each and every single one of them feeling very unique from one another. And I think the funniest thing looking back is that even to this very day, Mario Party 1 has the biggest selection of boards in the series, even still with Jamboree, which is only shy away by 1. So as I said earlier, in order to win the game, you need to get as much coins as you can. One of the main ways to get coins is to play through various minigames. And luckily for Mario Party 1, a lot of them still hold up pretty well. Musical mushrooms is basically musical chairs, as people just run around and wait for the music stop to get to the block. Mushroom mix-up is another strong one, as you need to find the right colored mushroom before everything else falls into the water. Handcar Havoc is a very hectic racing game, as you need to race as fast as you can through the mines without falling over. Platform Peril is a very solid platforming minigame, as you have to go through a side-scroller. And Shy Guy Says is a very simple matching minigame, as you need to wave the same flags that Shy Guy does. If you not, then he'll cut your rope and then probably get stranded in the sea. You know, out of all the minigames, I feel like this is probably the most recognizable one in the entire series, to the point where it was actually recognized in the latest Mario & Luigi game as one of Shy Guy's main attacks. However, even though that a lot of these minigames are very fun, some of them you can really tell they have aged. Buried Treasure for the most part kind of boils down to which one is the nearest. Box Mountain Mayhem kind of gets dull because for some reason a lot of my playthroughs, this one spawns the most for some reason. And my lord, out of all the minigames, I feel like the sections that age the most is probably the 1v3s, because most of them have problems from one another. As some of these are clearly one-sided, and even though I said the point of these minigames is so you can earn coins, some of them you do not earn coins at all, even if you win. And for most of these, you mostly earn coins by stealing it, especially with something like Bash and Cash, which honestly is kind of fun because it's mostly hilariously one-sided. But then we have stuff like Pipe Maze, which... And of course, if you're familiar with this franchise, you're probably familiar with the most controversial aspect of Mario Party, the rotating minigames. As a handful of these minigames require you to rotate the joystick as fast as you can. And that wouldn't sound so bad, but the problem is that they really want you to rotate that stick as much as you can. But no matter how fast I try, I usually lose with some of these minigames. Especially with this godforsaken bike minigame with the Boo. So instead of rotating the joystick with your thumb, a lot of people back in the day used the palm of their hands because they get an additional speed boost by doing so. And as you all know, it did cause a lot of blisters, which caused a massive lawsuit for Nintendo and such. And it still haunts them to this very day because when they released Mario Party on the NSO app, every time you boot up the game, they have a warning sign saying not to do it. But it didn't stop NDQ from remaking this minigame. Twice, actually! But did they change the minigame to compensate for this lawsuit? Nope, it's the exact same minigame with the exact same rotating mechanic. With the only actual thing that they add is during the tutorial section, they have a warning sign on not to do so. However, despite all of the minigames that did age a bit poorly, I think overall the lineup of minigames themselves is pretty solid for the most part, and even with the bad minigames, they're still very fun to go through, especially when you're going through a board game. Like something like Coin Shower Flower is hilariously one-sided, and the person who's on the flower is going to get at least 40 coins. But that honestly makes it very entertaining because how hilariously bullcrap it is. Like with any other game when BS comes to play, it's frustrating, but with this, it's honestly very hilarious. Now as for the presentation, for an N64 title, this game looks pretty good for the most part. The character models in this game does look very dated, but they still have this unique charm to them. Especially of Yoshi. I do not know why, but I really adore this model of Yoshi. He's just like a cat, there's nothing in those eyes. But I feel like the best part of this game is easily the soundtrack, because I do not know why, but the N64 instruments in this game feels very memorable. Especially with the board themes. Like, I'm not really too big on Wario's Battle Cannon, but I cannot deny that music is super iconic. And they even bring in some remixes of Mario RPG soundtracks as well. And that's not even going into the small little details. Like, I love the fact that every time you beat a game with a certain character, the title screen itself will change depending on that character's theme. Like, I was playing with Yoshi for the most part, and every time I beat a game as him, I get this cool scene where they're playing volleyball. And I also like how each of the boards tell your own unique story, like in Yoshi's Tropical Island, two of these Yoshis are separated by a distant island, and you need to get the star power to build a bridge. And if you're not big on being in last place, don't worry, because this game will rub salt in that wound, because every time the game ends, the last place person gets screwed over. Like again, this game is hilariously mean-spirited at times. Alrighty, so to wrap things up, I think it's fun to talk about the side modes of this game. Now there isn't much, but if you're going to this house, there's a special minigame area you can go through called Minigame Stadium. It's honestly a fine mode, it's mostly just like a light version of the Mario Party gameplay. But I think the main side mode that people talk about with this game is easily the adventure mode. As you travel through this world map similar to something like Super Mario Bros. 3 and try to complete all the minigames while having limited lives. It's honestly a very fun time, I recommend trying it out. But yeah, that was Mario Party 1, and final verdict? Still pretty good. Even though that this is not really my favorite game in the series, and I do feel like it has aged a bit, I honestly still think this is a very fun time. Like, yeah, a lot of these hurdles is mostly because of this game being the first game in the series, but honestly, the BS honestly adds a lot to multiplayer. But out of all the Mario Party games you can play on Nintendo Switch right now, including NSO, would I recommend this game? Yeah, sure. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite game on Switch. I honestly feel like games like Super Mario Party and Jamboree are way better. But you cannot deny the grand legacy of Mario Party 1, as this game became the groundwork of so many hectic games over the years. Like, only recently I did a video on Mario Party 9, and this is not even scratching the surface of some of the best games in the series. So I cannot wait to talk about the other Mario Party games in the near future. But that'll do for today, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye!